We are recording this meeting. If you wish not to be recorded, you can go to our website, www.westparkskatepark.com, where you can find the full presentation and a link to the survey. I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to Angel to make this statement in Spanish and welcome anybody who needs translation and interpretation services.
Hola, buenas tardes y gracias por venir a esta junta. Esta reunión se estará grabando y se publicará en el canal de YouTube de la ciudad de Ventura, el sitio del web del proyecto www.westparkskatepark.com. Si desea no ser grabado, los materiales de la reunión de este día y se pueden encontrar y sean disponibles en el sitio web del proyecto. La presentación está traducida y disponible en español. Si el enlace está disponible también en el chat. Si necesita ayuda o tiene preguntas durante la presentación, dirija sus preguntas al chat y yo los traduciré y yo también los ayudaré. Si tiene comentarios o preguntas generales, espera hasta el final de la presentación y yo los interpretaré y traduciré para usted. Gracias.
And we'll just add, if anybody has any questions, I kind of already said this information, so sorry for repeating it. If anybody has any questions, please direct them to the chat. We're going to ask everybody stay muted during the meeting. At the end of the meeting, we have about a half an hour for questions and answers, and we will ask people to use the raise your hand function, and we'll let people ask their questions in the order they are received. And thanks everyone for being here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your Saturday to join us today. Again, Brian kind of introduced us a little bit, but my name is Eric Berg. I'm a principal at Pacific Coast Land Design. We're a landscape architecture and urban design firm here in Ventura. We are here to kind of help the skate park process. She also mentioned that we'll be using some interactive activities today. So if you haven't already logged on to menti.com, either using the web address and the code on the left, or if you're using your phone, you can use the QR code on the right. It might be easier to be on a separate device. And if there's multiple of you chiming in from one device, you can or from one computer, you could use multiple devices to vote. So we hope to keep this meeting engaging. And as we go through this, kind of start with a little brief introductions as we've already done here. We're going to get into the project background, tell you a little bit about, many of you already know where this project's been, but provide a little more detail there. Then we're really going to dive into what we're here today to discuss what the community wants to see in a skate park designer, some of those criteria. Talk a little bit about where we're going to go from here, the future community engagement strategy. Potential fundraising, next steps, and as Brianne mentioned, have a question and answer session at the end. So why are we here? It's really important to understand where we're at in the process. The city won a $2 million grant to build the Westpark skate park. We're going to talk a little bit about that grant specifically in a little bit. But we're here today to discuss the qualities that are important in the skate park designer. The city is going to hire a skate park designer. We are here. We are not the designers. We are design professionals, but we will not be designing the skate park. And that's important to know. We're landscape architects, but we're not skateboarders. We don't feel qualified. The city has hired us to become kind of a middleman in between the designer because we're really good at project managing and pushing things through the process. So what we're here today is to ask the community their input on what's important in the designer. Not necessarily the design of the skate park. That's going to come later. There's already been a lot of community engagement about the design of the skate park. And once a skate park designer is hired, there's going to be multiple opportunities for the community to engage with that designer on the actual design. What we're really interested in is what you think about what makes a good skate park designer and how we can go about making sure the city hires that designer. We're also going to teach you or tell a little bit more about the SP68 grant and learn how to stay involved. We've got a great project website, westparkskatepark.com is just one of the many resources that we'll talk about today. So first of all, what is an RFP? An RFP, that you'll hear those letters a lot, stands for Request for Proposals. It's a document that cities put out requesting qualifications and specific information from contractors, designers, whoever it might be for a specific project to essentially objectively judge or evaluate them and select the best one for the project. That can be based on many different criteria, and that's what we're here today to do. This particular RFP is unique. This is going to be the city's first ever design build RFP. design build project. And what that means is that the city is going to be hiring a contractor that not only designs it, but also does the construction, builds it themselves. We're design professionals, but we actually don't build things. We usually propose and work on projects that are what they call design bid build, where we design it, then the city puts it out to bid and a different contractor comes in and build it. That's different. This is going to be the city's first ever design build. Again, the designer is going to be the same person that builds it. And that's really well suited to skate park construction because there are lots of companies that do just that. Very good companies out there. So a little bit more about us. Like I said, our office is in downtown Ventura, landscape architects. You might have interacted with us before. We helped design Kellogg Park. A contractor built it, as I mentioned, but we were the designers behind that project. We've been here since 1983. We're also just about ready to open the inclusive playground at Arroyo Verde Park that the city hired out. Again, design bid build. A contractor built that one, but it's almost finished. And another thing we do is we help try to leverage funding opportunities for cities. We just recently helped the city secure a $5 million grant for Clean California that's going to provide improvements on the Ventura River Trail, which is actually right next to the Westpark skate park. We'll talk a little bit more about that later if questions come up, but it's kind of a unique opportunity right on the edge of this project as well. So just to kind of give you a visualization of where we're at in the process, we kind of are viewed as this middleman. We're a liaison between you, the community, the skate park design builder, and the grantor and the city. We're kind of here to help make things go smoothly. You're going to see on this a couple different things, the skate park design builder and the grantor, which is the state of California, but also this designation of West. West, we're going to talk specifically here in a second. Go ahead, Brianne, to the next slide. West is you guys. There are several people of West. West is the Westpark Skate Park Expansion Steering Team. I see several people have logged on here again today. A few of you joined on Thursday too. So I'd like to give a shout out to those that are here from the West team. I know Angel's here. I see Mike here again. Both of you again. Thank you for coming again. I see Sunday on the list too. Angel. Yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah.
Thank you guys for having us.
Yeah. If you'd like to introduce yourselves, feel free.
Right on. Yeah, I'm Angel. I've already introduced myself the other day, but I'm basically a local member of this little group we got. But I grew up on the avenue. I joined the trade. I'm a pipe fitter. I joined the union, the local 484 here off the avenue as well. I've been here since birth. This is my home, and I'm just stoked to be a part of this project we got going. I mean, it's awesome that I've been seeing the part since it started, and now I get to see it grow to what it's going to be. And I appreciate that you guys are, like I said, making this effort to make it better, and give a little bit of improvement to the city. But this is it, man. This is our home. So let's make something rad. We have everything we need. We have everyone around us that's supporting it. So we got you guys, which is the PCLD, which is you guys are here to back us, and that's awesome that you guys are taking your time to be a part of this and to make this place freaking cool, and make it better than what it already is. But yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for letting me be a participant in this whole act. But yeah, I just want to say thanks to everyone for even showing up to the meeting, all the guys in the meeting, like everyone who clicked that button to even join, and that's awesome that you guys are all here. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Mike. Sunday, you want to say hi? I saw you come off camera for a second.
Oh, that was Angel, actually.
Okay. Anyway, West, I won't give much more time here because we got a lot to cover here, but West is a group of active community members that have banded together and stood up for this project, and the city has helped recognize them as essentially a liaison to the community. They're going to have a strong voice in the room. Hi, Sunday.
Hi.
I'll keep going. That's all right. But Sunday is a member of the West group as well. So anyway, they're going to be your liaisons, people that if you know them, feel free to reach out to them with any questions as this is going on. They can get directly in touch with us. They're also going to have a place in.
There's a little lag. It's funny on the. Yeah, go ahead.
There's going to be an opportunity for them to be in the room when a lot of the decisions are being made and have direct conversations with the city through the RFP process, as well as it continues forward. So we're excited to be working with directly with community members as an important part of this team.
So we're going to start our first activity. So if you haven't already, log on to Menti using either the link in the chat or go to www.menti.com, or you can also use the QR code. And if you've already voted and you're really inspired to vote again, you can, but we're asking community members to leave their voting to one vote. So if you're here again tonight and you were here the other night, thank you for being here again. But we would love to just keep it to one vote per community member. So we want to know how many people in your household are participating from your device today. So if you're attending with your family or friends, and there's multiple of you attending from one device, that's what this question is about. So we want to know if you're attending you by yourself or how many people you're attending with. 4 or more, awesome. If you guys have the capability to get on cell phones and vote separately, it might be more engaging, but there is a way to submit multiple votes. So you can submit multiple voting as you go. Angel, do you have a question?
Yeah, for the voting, I mean, because it's a little confusing. It's confusing for me, so I don't know if everyone is a little confused as well. But can you have to vote right now this second, or can you do it later on after the meeting's over?
Yeah, so this survey is actually also available on our website. We have it up at www.westparkskatepark.com, and you can come back and vote later if you prefer. If you are having trouble, there's also a link in the chat, so you could log on to it that way.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just didn't want to be changing pages because I'm on my phone and I don't know how everyone else is doing it. But if you could do it at home later, that's awesome. So that way everyone doesn't have to be sitting here trying to vote and right on the spot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It'll be fun if people can vote during the meeting just to see the results come in live. But if you're not able to, or if it's too confusing, the survey is also up on the website. And it's also available in Spanish. If you have friends that couldn't be here today or family members that you know would like to give feedback on this project, please share the link with them, www.westparkskatepark.com. There's all the project info and the presentations also up on the website.
Right on. Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you.
My pleasure. We also want to know, what is your age? So we want to know what age groups are attending today. It's important to us that the feedback from the community is a representative sample of people from across all the different age groups. So if you could vote on what your age is, that would be fantastic. Or ages, I should say. Thank you to our single voter. I think we do have a lot of people that were here on Thursday night, so.
Yeah.
I understand. So we also want to know where you live in Ventura. So these are our community council districts. If you don't live within Ventura city limits, you can also place your dot outside the black dashed line in the area that you live in. Everybody's welcome to vote. Again, we just know that the skate park is for all of Ventura, and we want to make sure that we're getting a representative sample from across our city.
Yeah, I see Brian voted online through the survey yesterday, so.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. As we vote on some of the more specific elements, if those who've already voted want to give feedback on why they voted for certain things already, that would be really helpful, just so we can have a conversation around some of the elements. And I think if you have already voted, but you want to give feedback on this question in particular in the chat, that would be great. So what brought you here tonight? Or I guess today? This is a repeat slide from the other night. We want to know, why are you interested in the Westpark skate park renovation project?
And the answer on this one's a little short, but try to summarize a little best. I think you have 250 characters.
Yeah, and if you want to submit multiple thoughts about why you're here today, that's okay too. If anybody has more robust comments than what they feel like they can leave in the chat or what they can leave in these activities, we want you to reach out to us. We have a project email set up. It's info@westparkskatepark.com. I'll go ahead and put it in the chat right now. And Eric or I personally will get back to you to discuss your comments or concerns. Skatepark.com. Yep, that's it. Brian says he skated until he was 25. He wants to see a place to encourage skating and kids getting outside. That's awesome. That's something that we heard a lot on Thursday evening is a lot of the people that are getting involved or have been involved in this project are longtime skaters and really want to see something for all ages and for the next generation of skaters as well. Angel, do you have a question?
Yeah, one more question. Sorry for butting in so much.
No,
but
that's all right.
for this, all these questions, if you already did them on the website, are they just, you don't have to do it again, right? It's just that one time only, or do you have to do it?
We would prefer one response per community member, just so it's representative and we're not getting double results. But if you have comments and if the chat is easy for you to access, feel free. Otherwise, we're a smaller group today.
I just want to make it clear. I just want to make it clear for everyone because, if we already voted yesterday, then this is just like a recap, basically, right?
Definitely.
Yep.
Thanks, Angel.
Okay.
So we're saying give the next generation a chance to shine with the best unique park possible. So unique, a place for the next generation. Sunday says excited to see these meetings as it is the beginning of the process to finally getting the skate park that Ventura deserves. And I'm going to toss it back over to Eric to go over some of the project background.
Yeah. So many of you in the room are probably familiar with the history of the Westpark skate park, but I'll provide a little glimpse of what we understand to be true. So the next is a little timeline, shows when the current skate park was constructed in the late 90s. Many of you are aware of this process back then. The city built 3 skate parks in Ventura, and that left a sour taste and still has a sour taste in many community members' eyes. But there has been, because of the community support, this project wouldn't have happened. It was community support back in the early 2000s that identified this project as the first to be implemented, and it got it onto the capital improvements plan, which is the city's kind of outlay for capital expenses, new projects. But there's been many projects added to the capital improvements plan. They don't go anywhere unless there's funding. And it wasn't until the late 2000s the city finally found a potential funding source. And that was what we call the State Parks Program Grant. Many of you attended community engagement events back in 2019 for the city's first application. There was 6 or 7 of them in 2019. I attended a couple of them. And they were instrumental in the city's grant application. Unfortunately, that first one in 2019 wasn't successful. But the city was able to reuse that application. They went to another meeting in 2020 and reapplied, and that's the grant that was awarded for just shy of $2 million. We call it a $2 million project because you guys have helped fundraise the other $10,000 to make it an even $2 million. And we'll talk about the budget a little bit later too. So that brings us to where we are today. The city was awarded the grant late last year, and now they're going through the process of this RFP development with the hopes of providing or hiring a consultant soon. A little bit about the grant program. They call this the State Parks Grant. There's a little longer name for it. It's a long-running grant in the state of California that's awarded over $380 million to parks just this year, but many hundreds of millions of dollars doled out to parks across the state. And it has very specific requirements. The largest and most significant one is that It creates or expands recreation opportunities in critically underserved communities. We're going to talk a little bit about each of these different criteria here, which are some of the most important. There are others as well, and how this park fit those grant criteria, because they're really important to remember going forward. There are some specific things that this grant had to do, this project had to do to make sure it was eligible for a grant. So I mentioned the critically underserved community. That's one of the reasons Westpark Skatepark was identified, because the west side of Ventura is Ventura's undersized community, as many of you are well aware, which many of the grant opportunities that are out there today, almost all of them, have a environmental equity focus. So they're trying to provide benefits that have long been not provided in certain communities throughout the state, and the west side is one of those. Another key element of this grant was that it wanted to be a grant that came from the communities. Rather than the city deciding where they wanted to put things and what wanted to be done, this grant had very specific stipulations that it was conducted through what they call community-based planning. And that's that six or seven different meetings that were constructed over the 15 months that the city held and got your feedback. Many of you attended that. I know I attended a couple. And the other thing to note here is that community engagement doesn't stop. We're here today. We're here on Thursday. And there's going to be more meetings in the future as this project goes forward. Another specific criteria was that it provides employment or volunteer opportunities. And here's a list of those that were included in the grant. Note, there's a few of these that were already kind of included as a part of the grant application, but a couple are going to be out there in the future after the skate park is constructed. And that is skateboarding education classes. The city is committed to providing those through their programming, and also public art is a part of the design. The grant also required the development of community partnerships. And again, several of these listed here were in the grant application, but they're going to continue throughout. So the West Side Community Development Corporation, that's Jackie Pierce on the West Side, the West Side Community Council are specifically identified, as well as at the bottom there, you see the Westpark Skate Park Expansion Steering Team, specifically highlighted in the grant application, which helped the city receive the grant. One of the more significant impacts that the grant has on the design of the skate park is what it had to do to claim that there was an environmental design strategy. Many of you are well aware that if we built a concrete skate park all by itself, concrete itself isn't a very sustainable material. It's got high embodied energy. It's got a big carbon footprint. The grant really wants to fund projects that are trying to do their best to minimize environmental impact. And so in addition to just the skate park, there are other elements that had to be included to make it competitive. Things like, what are we going to do with all that water that comes off that concrete? Thinking about stormwater bio-retention, bio-infiltration. With the concrete itself, is there a way we can incorporate recycled materials into the concrete as a sustainable way of offsetting some of that energy that goes into producing raw concrete? Carbon sequestration, low energy use lighting, material reuse. These were all strategies that were specifically included in the grant that need to be incorporated in the final design in order for the city to essentially redeem the $2 million. The other part of it is that they had to expand or at least not limit access beyond what was currently there. So the city is committed to maintaining its current use hours, which are dawn to dusk, and will not charge any fees. As part of the grant application, the city had to submit a site plan. And what's important to know is the site plan on the right was actually drawn by PCLD. Again, not skateboard park designers. I want to make this very clear. What we did, our role in the grant application was to take the feedback that was gained from you guys, the community, through the community engagement process, those meetings where there was a bunch of voting on different elements that people liked. That translated into kind of a loose where this wants to be. And we translated that into a site plan that looked more like something the grantor wanted to see. I want to emphasize this right now. That is not the plan that's going to end up here. It could be, but it's not. We're not going to be designing this. A new designer is going to come in and put their own spin on things. And so it's just important to know that while that is a site plan, it is not the site plan as we move forward.
Eric, Angel put a question in the chat, which I think might be helpful for us to answer at this point, talking about the site plan. Angel said this is an expansion, not a rebuild, right? Just wanted to make sure it's clear so everybody understands that the original bowl stays, right?
That is correct, Angel. That is the title of the program of the project. It's the Westpark Skatepark expansion project. So through the community engagement, there was a lot of feedback that came out about preserving the existing bowl and some ideas to remove it as well. The city based the cost estimate and the design on keeping it. However, I want to make it clear that I don't think that decision has been fully vetted out yet in the terms of when a qualified skate park designer comes on here and really assesses that, there may be a reason to get rid of it, just because they may deem it unsuitable or for whatever reason, they want to start from scratch. But that is going to likely have a cost implication as well. Because there was strong advocacy to keep it, the city used that as a way to justify the cost. And so therefore replacing it is not in the cost estimate at this time. A little bit about the timeline. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but what is this process going to look like as we move forward? And where are we now? We're at the very beginning of this. The grant award happened, and now we're looking for the contractor. So as you can see in this timeline, this is also on the website, and we're going to update this as we kind of move through on the website. So if you go there, you'll see kind of where we're at. But we're developing an RFP so that we can select the design build contractor. After the design build contractor is selected, that's when you guys are going to be extremely involved. They're going to go through their preliminary design efforts and community engagement in tandem, coming up with concepts, bringing them to you, getting feedback, going back in, refining that and coming back to you. Once that effort's done, once everybody feels like they've got a really good preliminary design, it's going to look like they kind of disappear for a little bit. They're going to go into their construction permit and drawings, which can take a while. But that process is them really dialing in the details of the design, making sure the city sees what they want in the design, from structural details to calculations, all that sort of stuff. There's not going to be a lot of community engagement in that design, so it might look like it's going dark, but it's not. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and we're going to be helping facilitate that work. We'll also be trying to provide updates as it's moving. Then, once that's done, it's going to all of a sudden look like things are happening. Earth's going to start moving and construction is going to start with the hope of opening the skate park. Right now, we're estimating it could be open by the spring of 2025 based on our current timeline.
So we're going to get ready to vote again, those of you that haven't voted. And again, please leave feedback in the chat if you've already voted, but you want your thoughts to be a part of today's conversation. So we'd like to know, what are a few of your favorite skate parks? So part of this project is we cannot ask for, or we can't take into effect like which specific companies you folks want to be hired. We have to be very general with the criteria. We can be specific with the criteria, but this gives us information of which skate parks you like, which examples. So we have that in mind when we start crafting the RFP, and then later on when the decision making happens. And this one you can, if you are voting right now, you can respond to multiple times and give us up to 3. Sunday says in the chat that she'd like to make sure that a list of items that must be included, such as trees, art, can be donated so they don't take away from the funds to build a world-class skate park. This is what was done in Ojai. If everyone starts dipping into the budget, there isn't much left for a great skate park. Time and materials costing, and so much more. We're going to talk more about the costing element of it. Those are great ideas, Sunday, and I think that some of that can be brought into the project because we're so early on. That feedback is really helpful to help prepare for the project. But I don't think at this time we're quite there yet in the decision-making process. But those are awesome ideas.
And I do want to say that the budget for the park did account for the cost of those other items in addition to the cost of the skate park. And yes, you're right, the cost has gone up, and that's what we're going to address later. So it's a great point, Sunday.
And then what is important to you in a skate park designer? So again, if you've already voted, but you want to bring up some points, please feel free to bring them up in the chat. A lot of the big items that came up on Thursday night was creativity, experience was really important. Anyone that was here on Thursday that wants to include those sentiments, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I think Brianne touched on something that is really important there, and I'll try to rehash it too. The idea of objectivity in an RFP. Like I said, we're not asking you today who's your favorite skate park designer, because we can't. We can't kind of predestine the selection of this by any one firm. The city has to remain objective, because otherwise, somebody who was essentially left out, who wasn't that firm, could challenge it and it said it wasn't an objective. And if that were to happen, it can bring all of this to a screeching halt. So it's very important at this point in time that we're trying to craft criteria that help us pick that firm, understand who that firm is supposed to be from a really broad selective criteria, but not say we're going to hire these people, because that's not the objective standard that we have to use.
So speaking of criteria, Eric's now going to talk a little bit about skateboard design and build criteria, some of the elements that will be included in the RFP that we're looking for feedback on.
Yeah, so this is kind of the key questions we're coming to the community for. We've essentially come up with 7 different criteria, and criteria we're defining as the principles or standards by which the selection process can be evaluated or decided. These 7 criteria kind of encompass the whole RFP, but what we're really going to be asking you about are 3 of them: approach, experience and references, and firm qualities. Those other 4 are just as important, but those are ones that the city has a really keen eye for and is going to be looking for on their end, that are helping dial in. The community, we've kind of gauged towards this approach. So with approach, we're defining this is the methodology that the design to build team uses to design skate parks. It's their point of view in design. So what we want to know today is how these different metrics, these are the ways to measure their approach, how important these are to you in relation to one another. For example, the first one we have is community build elements. How important to you is it that the firm chosen has the ability to incorporate community labor into work, that they incorporate community into the actual construction of the skate park? How important to you is creativity? Creativity is their artistic expression, artistic features, and original ideas. How important is it that they have essentially a commitment to creativity? How important to you is culture? And by culture here, we're actually talking about their designs. How important to you is that the design of the firm, they have a great way of reflecting the local culture of place.
Sorry.
The local culture of place. So in this sense, you could imagine a firm designing something that would reflect the West Side or the 805, incorporating some sense of place into their designs. Flow is another one. How important to you is it that the skate park has a commitment to designing skate parks with flow, where you can move through the skate park different elements in a continuous stream? Next one is personal skating background. How important to you is the designers are skaters themselves? We've heard this one many, many times, that people want a skate park designed by skaters. This is a chance to essentially heighten that as a criteria. How important is practicality? Practicality we're defining as skate elements likely to succeed or be effective in real circumstances. Essentially, it's like, how skateable is the skate park? We've seen lots of skate parks where they design some crazy feature, but no one can actually skate on it anyway. It looks really cool, but it's not that practical. And then lastly is skate value. Is it really important to you that the designer has a way of maximizing the skatable features? It's kind of the bang for the budget, bang for the buck kind of thing. They can get a lot in there for a little, as opposed to making big splashes, but at the end of the day, it's not really substantial. How important is that to you?
So we're going to vote again. If you're voting, we didn't have any voters on the last couple, so I was going to bring up the results from the other night just so we could have them for conversation. Sorry about that little blip in your presentation, Eric. But we want to know, what is the most important to you in a skate park design builder's approach? So this is, again, the point of view. If you are voting right now, you can pull over the toggle on the Menti app for how important things are. So for example, if community build element is really important to you, you can pull that all the way over. And they may all be important to you, but there should be a little bit of hierarchy in your voting.
I see Brian has had a couple in the chat. Skate experience is one of the most important aspects of designer, and steady flow for sure. Keep momentum and flow and safer. Longevity, that's interesting. Durability, longevity. That's great, Sunday. Angel had no dead end, steady flow, no flat walls. Everything must have some kind of transition, use of everything to its potential.
Awesome.
We got
a voter. So to this voter, community build elements is really important. Flow is really important. Practicality is really important. I'm just going to bring up on our screen. This is results from Thursday's meeting. So overall flow is really important. The fact that the person who's designing and building the skate park also has personal skating background was really important. Overall skate value and creativity were just behind those. We'll go ahead and go on to the next question. Or the next section, I'm sorry. So Eric's going to talk a little bit about defining experience and references and how these different factors are important to you.
Yeah, so experience and references as a criteria are the overall qualities attributed to their existing body of work and the impressions by skate community and previous clients. So how important to you is that they have a commitment to craftsmanship, being the #1 metric we're using there. How important to you is that the firm chosen has a large number of skate parks built in their portfolio, that they've done work not only around the state, the country, but also around the world, and have a large quantity of work. How important to you is it that they have project-specific experience? And this is kind of a nuanced metric we're using. How important to you is it that the firm that is chosen by the city is the firm that designed your favorite skate park? That you know that firm does what you want because you've experienced it in person. How important to you is it that they have references, a large quality and quantity of references from previous clients that won awards or designations? And that's kind of the other flip side of that is the less maybe documented part of it, but they have positive qualities in their reputation as a firm known in the skate community. They may not have a bunch of awards or references, but they have a great reputation. How important is that to you? How important to you is years of experience, that they've been doing it for a long time, designing a building for a long time?
So again, we're going to vote, or someone's voting, hopefully. So we're voting on experience and references. What is most important to you out of these factors? Sunday, that's a great point. Yeah, about litigation. So this is falling into one of the factors that the city will evaluate. So you're not going to see litigation as something that you're voting on tonight, but it's something that's definitely important to the city, and it'll be a part of the RFP. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yep. And built to budget too. Built to budget is something the city wants to know that they have a commitment to building within budgets. So. Mm-hmm.
Brandon says a builder whose designs do not include purely aesthetic and non-skatable features. So practicality.
Yeah.
So again, these are the results from Thursday night. So craftsmanship was really important to the voters on Thursday. Also reputation within the skate community is something that's really important. So if this is an important factor, knowing from you folks what the reputation of these different firms are is really important. Again, if you want to provide additional feedback that you haven't been able to provide tonight, our email address is info@westparkskatepark.com, where you can either drop us a message. There's like a little submit form, or you can just submit us an email from your personal email, and Eric or I will get back to you, and we can incorporate that information into the RFP generation process.
Brian had a history of meeting budget and timelines, especially with fluctuating prices and goods. Thanks, Brian. That's great. Again, those criteria are kind of those other ones that the city is looking very keenly at. So yes, 100%. Timeline being a big one, and availability as well. Many of these are smaller. Many firms out there are smaller and may not be available to meet the city's timeline.
Okay, so the last set of qualities that we want to talk about is firm qualities. And these are the overall qualities about the structure, makeup, and values of the firm.
So how important to you is it that they have community engagement experience and they have a focus and specialty in working with communities like you, that they have all the tools present in their firm, whether it be translation, interpretation capabilities, and just have an experience working with community engagement? How important to you is it that they have a disadvantaged business status? That is a technical designation for businesses that are either women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, small disadvantaged businesses. Is that important to you? How important to you is their location, their proximity to Ventura being the kind of ultimate goal of that? Is that important to you that they are close to Ventura? We know that these firms work worldwide and some of them are not close. So is that important that they be close to you? Philanthropy, how important is it that they give back, that they might have nonprofit causes that they donate to, or some social equity components to their firm, that they maybe do pro bono work here or there. The last two are kind of the opposite ends of the spectrum. How important to you is it that the city choose a small firm, that we pick a firm that may have kind of a singular dedication to this project and this project alone? That's some of the potential benefits of a smaller firm. As opposed to a large firm, which would have the benefit of having a lot of resources at their disposal to bring it at any time, may be able to adapt quicker and meet tighter time lanes, might not be as subject to different fluctuations in workforce availability.
So again, we're going to vote for anybody that's voting. You can use the code at menti.com or the link that's in the chat. So we want to know, what is the most important to you in a skate park designer builder's firm? So firm qualities. And I'll go ahead and bring up the results from Thursday night for conversation purposes. So to Thursday's group, community engagement experience and the specialty in that was the most important factor. Philanthropy, or how a firm's ability to give back, if they have a volunteer arm of their company, was next important. And then there seemed to be a preference for a larger firm. Sunday, I see your question about the square footage. This is also a question that we got on Thursday night. So the overall square footage is about 40,000 square feet. And from our review of the application, a little bit more than half of that was designated for skate park specific, like skate specific amenities. The current skate park, if my memory serves me correctly, is around, I should look this up, so I'm not just bringing stuff up. I'll get back to you on that Sunday. So now we want to know about the overall criteria. So out of these three different factors or criteria for different firms, which of these three are the most important? Do you think a firm's approach to the project is most important? Do you think the firm's experience and references is most important in their approach to, or their overall approach to the project, or their firm qualities? So is the firm qualities the things that are specifically about the firm and their makeup most important? And again, these are the definitions for these three things. So approach is the methodology or the point of view that the design build team uses to design skate parks. Experience and references is the overall qualities attributed to the existing body of work and the impressions that the skate community has and potential previous clients, or the overall firm qualities, or the overall qualities about the structure, makeup, and the values of the firm most important. So if anybody wants to vote, the voting is available, and I'll go ahead and bring up the results from Thursday. So Sunday, the rest of the square footage has to account for the new turnaround for emergency access. There's also new sidewalks included in the plan, some of that stormwater treatment and shade. We can go ahead and flip back to the site plan during the question and answer portion of the meeting if we want to go ahead and talk a little bit more about what was in the application.
Yeah, and I want to say that square footage is completely open too at this point. It was a rough used for estimate but what Brianne said there is there are a lot of supporting things in the that will have to be installed in addition to the skate park. Unfortunately, just to get the grant, if the city would have said that we're just going to build a skate park, we're going to cover all of this ground with the skate park, they wouldn't have won the application because they wouldn't have met the other requirements of the grant. So one of the big requirements being, like I mentioned earlier, if you put in a whole bunch of concrete, the state requires you to treat the water for that before it goes into the river. So the stormwater infiltration and treatment part is going to be necessary to offset the new amount of concrete that's going to be put on the ground. And that's going to take up space that you would think could be used for a skate park, but it actually can't. The other things being trees, those sorts of things, the grantor really wanted to see that as the offset. If we wouldn't have put those in there, there's a good chance we wouldn't have got the grant. So it's kind of a trade-off. You have to be willing to give up a little bit in those features in order to get what you really want, which is the skate park. And the other thing I want to say is, as far as the square footage is, when a designer comes in, all those technical nuances of how many square feet, I think the goal is going to be to maximize the skate park, but meet the requirements of the other things that have to be provided either regulatory-wise or for the grant.
And Brian asked that this also includes the requirement for the greenery and art, correct?
Yes, correct, Brian. Thanks.
So looking at Thursday's results, experience and references was the most important to the voters, second being approach, and third being firm qualities. If you guys have any feedback on these elements, feel free to throw them in the chat. Oh, we've got a voter. Awesome.
I think one of the things to note about what you're seeing here with these is all those different metrics we're going to use to help kind of judge how someone responds in their firm qualities. Their response to this question is going to tell us how we should weight firms' experience and references as opposed to their firm qualities, as opposed to essentially giving them an equal score. What we're kind of seeing is, if we just went out based on this result, that experience and references is more important, therefore it should be scored higher than someone's approach.
Great, and thanks to the voter who's participating. We appreciate your feedback. They said that experience and references is most important to them, then those firm qualities that we went over, and then lastly, approach. So a couple of things have come up that we didn't have you vote on, like litigation or the ability to cost estimates. But we want to know, are there any other criteria that we haven't mentioned or have you vote on today that are important to you when the RFP submissions are evaluated? So again, feel free to use the chat, or our voter can put it into the Menti app. Thanks, you guys, for all your great feedback thus far. We appreciate you using the Zoom chat. And feel free to keep those comments coming. We'll come back to them. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about our future community engagement strategy and what are some of the different options that we have for meetings and fundraising.
So one of the things we want to know is that has an effect on the designer we choose, or really what we ask them to do, is how often you want to hear from them after the designer is selected. We've kind of broken it down into two different options, a 2-meeting model or a 3-meeting model. The 2-meeting model means that the designer can come on board and take all of the previous community engagement that was garnered during the grant application when everybody voted on, we kind of showed you those results earlier, all the different features, and they can really hit the ground running and come up with a couple design concepts, then bring those to you, to the community, for the first time. So you'd be seeing them for the first time, a few design concepts, nothing chosen, but you'd get kind of flesh out, pick your best ones, pick some from each kind of thing, help them decide what you want. Then they would go back, kind of fine tune that design and come back to you again with the final for kind of comments and revisions before it moved on. So that's 2 meetings, as opposed to a 3-meeting model that would have them essentially kind of start from scratch. They would come to you and ask you what you want to see again, making sure they're really looking that what they're hearing from you is the same as it was before they even start drawing or coming up with designs. Then they would come back again with concepts based on that. You'd help them again, kind of fine tune those concepts, and then come back with the final. So that's 3 meetings. The real difference here, there's a trade-off to each. If you go with the 2, it's going to be a little less cost. They're going to charge us less to do 2 meetings than they will for 3. And additionally, it's going to be faster. You're going to get to that final concept design faster because they don't have to organize and prepare for another meeting, as opposed to the 3 meeting model, which may allow you to get more feedback into the design, but it's both going to cost design a little bit more and it's going to take longer. Regarding the cost, it's important to note that the added cost here is a relatively small part of the overall budget of $2 million, but it is a consideration.
All right, so for those of you that are voting, open it up for voting. What do you prefer, 2 or 3 meetings? And for those of you that have already voted, but want to throw a number into the chat with your preference, that would be great. Two meetings. And I'll just share Thursday night, the overwhelming preference was for 2 meetings. And my interpretation of that is that you guys have already put a lot of energy and time, and there's been a lot of excellent meetings and awesome feedback that can be handed over to the designer straight away so they can roll up their sleeves and get to work come awarding.
And one specific question that came up to try and clarify this on Thursday was how much longer? And we kind of had an estimate. We don't know for sure, but 2 to 3 months it could add, just because it takes a little longer to get things going. That extra meeting could add onto the schedule of the project.
So next, we're going to talk a little bit about cost escalation and the effects it could have on the project.
And I'm seeing this in the chat already. I don't think there's a lot of explanation needed here, but what I do want to explain is that the grant was filed in the beginning of 2020. That's when the city said, this is how much this thing's going to cost based on the estimate. As you are all very aware, things have not gotten cheaper in the last 2 years. Quite to the contrary, they've gotten much more expensive. And that is true in construction as well. To the point that when the grant was awarded in late 2021, $2 million, the city fully realized that $2 million wasn't enough to cover what was proposed. They've chipped in an additional $300,000 to $350,000, bringing the budget up to $2.3 million. But there's still some question as to whether or not that's going to be enough to do everything. We also have to recognize the city doesn't have an open checkbook to just keep cutting to additional costs. So what we want to ask you today is about your willingness to fundraise this and the impacts on the design. It's not saying that it has to be fundraised or that there isn't enough money. We could totally build a skate park with $2.3 million. So the question is that we're bringing to you today is,
I just want to add that the city has dedicated over $300,000 to the project. So as we talked about, the project budget that's been awarded from the grantor is $2 million. But with all this price escalation, the city has looked internally for funds to kind of help make up for some of this. So I think it's $317,000 that the city's adding to the budget. So just wanted to make sure that you guys know that the city's coming to the table with what they can as well, but it may not be enough.
So the question we're posing for you today is, would you rather build to the current budget, the $2.3 million, and make modifications to the design as it goes on to make sure we're hitting that budget? And this route would essentially allow us to build by that summer of 2024 route. Or we could aid in community fundraising. Would you be willing to help aid in community fundraising to add to the project budget and maximize the build out capabilities? And this would add time to the project because it's going to take time to raise those funds, potentially putting the construction back to the summer of or spring of 2025. It's important to note here that the project has a back-end deadline. This cannot be constructed any later than June of 2025. So even though we might add time for fundraising, we can't just go on ad infinitum forever, keep trying to get more. It has to be built by 2025, and that's a stipulation of the grant. So the question here is, and Brandon brought up the fact that the community's already raised $17,000. Yes, that is included in that total number, Brandon, and exactly.
So for the person that's voting, please send in your feedback. As of end of Thursday night, 15 of the 23 voters said that they wanted to build to the current budget and make the modifications needed, and for the design aspirations to limit costs. And 8 people said that they wanted to aid in community fundraise to add to project budget to maximize the build out capabilities. We know that you guys have already put a lot of time and energy into fundraising, and we just wanted to take the temperature as if cost is a factor, is that something that you guys would be willing to do to add a little time and a little effort into the fundraising efforts, or do we just want to get this thing done? Sunday, we see your comment in the chat that you'd like to see a breakdown of estimated costs and how that was written. We can share that information with you. Again, it was just an estimate, and things are most likely going to fluctuate and change.
And it's important to know that we're not held to that estimate in the terms of so much money was to the skate park, so much money was to trees or whatever. The estimate was out there. It is fully expected. The state, the grantor, fully expects those numbers to move. It's an estimate based at the time of construction. That is the best guess that can be made, or at the time of the grant application, not at time of construction. So,
yeah. So I'm seeing that the idea of potentially donations being able to help make up for the cost differential if there isn't enough funding. So
yeah,
again,
one of the important things is if we were to choose to go with the fundraising route, which we're kind of hearing no, but if we were, it's important to get that on the ground early so we can start that process so that it doesn't impact the time frame. And there's lots of ways to do that. Having worked on the Inclusive Playground project at Arroyo Verde, that project was able to raise over $400,000, but it did add time to the project, hence why it's taken since 2018 to get the Thomas Spire rebuild playground constructed. So, but we were able to raise, it wasn't limited by a grant deadline either.
I see Dawn's comment in the chat. Would there be any interest in getting corporate sponsorships that would be integrated into the park, specifically action sports oriented companies in the community like Skate One, Patagonia, and others that may ease the ability to access donations quickly and build more focus on local community? Yes, this would fall under the fundraising category. So this is a huge opportunity for the skate park. I'm not sure if it's something that the city would put time and effort into if the community wasn't interested in fundraising. So this is a great point, Dawn.
Yeah, I think you made a good point there, Brianne. It's about the intent to fundraise. If we're going to fundraise, it's going to take resources to put together that campaign, reach out to those organizations, make sure it's an organized effort. And that inherently just adds time and resources to the project, not very important ones. But if we're hearing from the community that, no, let's get this thing done as fast as possible, and the city kind of agrees, then we may not take the time and resources to develop that arm. So, and it's not off the table as of today, or as of this either. I think the idea of fundraising is going to be something that comes up over and over and over again throughout this process. Inherently, we're just kind of gauging people's thoughts about it early on.
So next, we just want to recap what the next steps are for the park before we open it up for question and answer. Eric's going to go over our future timeline, what the timeline's looking like right now, and resources to help you stay involved on the project as we move forward.
Thanks, Brianne. Yeah, so this is another timeline. You've seen a few of them today. Where we are now is developing the RFP. That process with your community engagement with these meetings is expected to take another month or so. With the hope of getting the RFP out in early June or July. And that process takes some time so that responders can both respond, but then they can interview potential respondees as well. With the hopes of having a contractor on board in October, November. And that's when the fun begins. That's when they're going to come back to you with designs December through March of next year, with the hopes of going through that permitting stage, kind of as I mentioned, that quiet time when they're going to be sharpening their pencils, getting everything in a row, April to October. Construction potentially next fall, winter, November 2024, not next 2024, sorry. Forgot what year it was. And then with the opening goal of summer of 2024. And then you can see on this timeline too when the grant requires completion to be done, March of 2025. I'll let you do these, Bran. You know them so well.
Okay. Yeah. So PCLD's put together a Project Hub website for you guys to stay in touch on the project. The website is www.westparkskatepark.com. And on there will be the recordings from the meeting today, recording from the meeting on Thursday. You can access the survey. Again, please share the survey with people that weren't able to attend the meetings, but would have great feedback, because we want to incorporate everybody's feedback into the RFP writing process and evaluation of proposers. We will also have project schedule updates. There's additional resources on the website. You can contact us. So again, like that text box I was talking about, where you can drop us a note. That's also on the website. And maybe most importantly, you can join our mailing list. So we'll keep you in touch, and we can give you all the project updates as they happen. Again, the targeted release for the RFP is in July of this year. And at this time, we're going to go ahead and open it up for question and answer. Again, we'd like you to raise your hand, and we'll unmute people in the order that their hands go up. If you have comments that you'd just like to send to us directly, please feel free to use that email, info@westparkskatepark.com. And who has comments? Who has comment statements? Anything that you guys want clarified? Sunday. And we know you got a little bit of a lag, so unmute yourself and we'll give it a few seconds. I'm gonna invite you to unmute. You're unmuted, Sunday, so feel free to start chatting when you're ready.
We're not hearing anything Sunday. Not sure if it's still a delay. I know it was really long.
Sunday, you can also call into the meeting if you would prefer. I'm going to go ahead and put you on mute, and I'll put that information on how to call into the meeting in the chat. I'm going to stop my screen share for a second. Oh, Dawn's asking, what was the response to the fundraising from Thursday's meeting? So it was similar to what came up in the chat today, which was that most folks would prefer to build to the current budget and stick to the current design aspirations for costs. And then 8 people said that they would like to aid in community fundraising to add to project budget and build out capabilities. So like 2/3, 1/3.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
we can hear you.
It's funny, there's such a lag. You're talking, but there's no sound coming up. Okay. Okay. I think the only thing I want to say is I always have 500 things to say. Just want to say thank you. I appreciate the city having you organize and do this planning for us and the community outreach, because I know if you weren't doing this, we wouldn't be like sort of. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sunday, if you can hear us, I'm going to have you call in to give your comments.
It's about a 20-second delay.
Does anybody else have any comments while we're waiting for Sunday to call in? Or anything that they want clarified?
I saw a couple of comments in the chat that we can address regarding Ojai Skate Park. Brandon added that they were able to significantly cut costs by donated materials and labor. That's great to hear. I'm less familiar with the logistics of that, so I'd love to get more information on that as we move forward. And I think that's going to be something to be coordinated early, so the design team knows what's available. As a designer myself, whenever we're trying to work with donations, it's always about availability and where those things come from. So it's great to hear. Good idea. Brandon's got his hand raised, Graham. Go ahead, Brandon.
Go ahead.
You're up.
Alrighty. Well, before the survey and these last two meetings, I was kind of concerned that we were going to kind of be, the community may have wanted to just kind of go with Cal Skate Parks or someone locally, and I just kind of wanted to stress that that there's a lot more out there than what we have in the county, and so like that doesn't appear from the people in the meeting now that there's a lot of kids, but like I would just say look beyond what we have, because there's some really amazing stuff out there, and Cal Skate Parks and Spawn Ranch aren't necessarily the guys that build that. And like Sunday said, I'd really like to thank you guys. You guys did a great job. That's about it.
Thanks for your comment, Brandon. Yeah, we just, we're really happy to be here too. I mean, Eric's been a long time working for PCLD, and I'm born and raised here in Ventura. So this is a really great project to be able to help advocate for the local community.
Yeah, I live in Midtown too. So.
Yeah, I live on the west side, so it's right in my backyard too. But I'd like to take a moment just to share that the city is really committed to this being your guys' skate park. You guys have advocated for it. You've worked really hard for it, and they're doing everything they can to make sure that your voice is an important voice in this process, maybe the most important voice. So we'll continue to work to advocate for your guys' thoughts and keep them coming. And this is just the beginning of a really great process. So thanks.
So cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Hi there.
Is that Sunday?
Yeah, it's me. I'm on my phone now.
Perfect. Perfect. Much better.
I just wanted to say, okay, sorry, that was weird. Just wanted to say thank you to both of you and to the city and the Park and Rec director that wholeheartedly is in it. And I'm so grateful for that. We had a meeting with her, and it's apparent that she's going to see this through. And that's really quite important, because worked on projects where that's not the case. So that's key. I do have a question. It was news to me that only half of the square footage is going to be for the actual skate park for skateboarding. So that is news to me and a little concerning. Although I know and realize that there were parts of the grant process that identified other needs. So I think we need to be resourceful and think about really, we want the best skate park, right? Obviously, the trees and all the other aspects are super important, but I know just firsthand that what we did in Ojai and working with other groups is a way of offsetting costs for those things, so that we do have money. The money, we're building a skate park, so to me, the money should go for the skate park as much as possible. So I'd hate to see it like whittled down to half because of the other things on the list. So I'd love to see us pursue the ability, which I know legally we can. I know for Ojai, the soil testing, the electrical work was donated. It has to be skilled labor. The art was donated, excavation, the trees, the bathroom, lighting was a grant I wrote. even the tiles in the bowl. Like, these are the ways that we were able to build a skate park for $360,000. This was a long time ago. I totally get the difference, and am affected by that within my work, building stores and things like that, and construction. So I'm well aware of that. But I think there has to be this common goal that the real goal is to build a skate park with amenities that are needed and will be wonderful. But just always keeping that in mind. And then I would also like to pursue that the city, we get it on the agenda for the city council, so it's top of mind for them, even if we just, West comes and community members come and just speak and talk about how excited we are, so that it's top of mind for our council members. And then also, I would also like the city council to waive the permit fees. It doesn't make sense that we are paying, we're building something for the city of Ventura and then we're charging ourselves. And that was something that we did as well, which probably saved us, $15,000. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I'm super stoked on this. It's going to be beautiful. It looks like an oasis, it looks like a little island paradise when I see this photo right now, this rendering. But I just want to keep top of mind that number one is the skate park and building that everyone's been waiting for. And this looks beautiful. You obviously have a skill for landscape design. But I think there's ways to do this where we make sure the funding gets the best elements versus like the oldest tree. You know what I mean? Trees grow, I think there's so many ways in design to do this. So that's all. I just had to give you my 2 cents, and thank you again.
Yeah, thanks for all your great comments, Sunday. In the chat on the Zoom meeting, I went ahead and put the project description from the application, which lists the existing skate bowl that's there on site is only about 3,000 square feet. And the overall site that we're showing here on the screen is 40,000 square feet. So we definitely hear you that both spatially and budget-wise, you guys want the majority of the site to be skate park. And that's something that you guys can advocate for. And this information will be shared on to the future design build contractor. I think, again, these things that are part of the grant that are shown that are maybe taking up half the space in this rendering don't necessarily have to take up a half the space. Eric, do you have any other comments to that?
No, I was just looking, I pulled up the actual grant application cost estimate too for a little dialed in estimate. It was the existing 3,200 square foot bowl is slated to stay, and the proposed expansion of the skate park features was estimated at about 22,000 square feet. So a total of 25 of the 40,000 square feet for skate park. And I really want to caution everybody that this is just a preliminary estimate, that the site plan you see here isn't going to look like this. The designer is going to do it all differently, all of that stuff, that number is going to change 100%. I think the point here is the goal of maximizing the skate park, so long as we're meeting the requirements of the grant and any other regulatory requirements that may be present, that we can't get away from.
And I think that's the key. So I think that if we're all talking about maximizing the skate park, and definitely doing all the other elements within the grant, because we want to obviously get the grant. But I do question like a roundabout, like when we're doing public works type of work.
And I think the status of that too, Sunday, is completely open-ended at this point too. So I do not want people to get fixated on the site plan that's on the screen at all. That is not the goal.
Yeah,
it's not going to look like that.
I get it. We did the same thing, and we always had this conversation. I think I'm just literally talking about money and numbers and square footage. Yeah. So, but I think we can accomplish this. And I do also feel like Ojai did it. And I know there's so many rad people in businesses, and Ventura is way bigger, that would donate the type of materials we need to be a part of this for their community, for their children, and see this come to fruition. So that's all. I just want to say thank you and thanks for listening.
And another thing people can be aware of in that cost estimate that was submitted is that of the $2 million estimate, more than 60% of the budget was dedicated just to those skate park features. So a good chunk of the budget of that $2 million was dedicated to constructing something like 1.2 of that million, 1.25. And again, that's an estimate, knowing that the costs are rising. I think it's just a good gauge of where the priorities were at the time, understanding that it also had to fund some of the other things. But again, completely open-ended, that number can change too. And will.
Yeah, we even had like the Lions Club donated, built the bathroom, put in the sewer line. You know what I mean? Like there's ways of, yeah, we're not even tapping into other nonprofits in Ventura as well. So I see hope. We'll get it.
Yep.
Thank you, Sunday.
Thank you, Sunday.
Angel's got his hand up. So Angel, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute.
Hi, everyone. I was just a little concerned because I remember we were talking to Nancy. It was Nancy Bolton, her last name. And she was saying something about if we don't use this grant, I guess there's a time limit on this grant. And if we don't use it by that time limit, we could lose it. So I was thinking to myself about how the meetings, like how many community meetings we want. I feel like the 2 is fine. And if anyone else wants to reach out to you guys or to us in any kind of way, that would be the best bet, because we're sort of on crunch time. We don't have much time to be spending on how would you say it, like not donations. Donations are always good, but fundraisers and like trying to make more money. I think we have plenty. And if people want to donate, I think that's the best route, and it's possible. But to be fundraising with the community already, we've done that. We already went through that. And if we need more, possibly we could do it later down the line. Like for example, Ojai Park, the lights they didn't have enough for lights, so they had to do that a little delayed, which I think was understandable. That's if we don't get lights at the park, we just don't get them. We don't necessarily need them. We have the sun for that. And I just feel like the quicker we get this ball rolling, the better off we are to continue and get the park sooner, and everyone could just get on it and have a good time, you know. But that's just all I got to say. Let's just get the ball rolling, man. The 2 meetings is fine. The third one is if it's gonna take longer for us, that's gonna give us more. It's gonna put us more at risk to not get this grant and not be able to use it. So I feel that that the 2 meetings with the donations is, if we could get donations, that's awesome. But let's not be greedy here. We have plenty to make something really cool. Make something really rad for the community, and yeah, that's it. That's all I got to say. That thank you guys.
Thanks, Angel. I'll just add that the things that are in the grant application, they have to be fulfilled when the park's open. So if lighting was in the application, it's something that will be fulfilled as part of the build out. But your sentiments are heard, and we appreciate it, Angel. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I mean, if it's in there, that's what it is. But I'm just saying that I think we have plenty, and we could make something really cool happen with what we have, and find the right person, find the right people to do it.
I'll chime in here a little bit, and that the city is also looking at creative ways of chipping away at the edges of the cost of this with some adjacent projects. I mentioned the $5 million grant for the Clean California project earlier. The Clean California project will provide improvements along the Ventura River Bike Trail right adjacent to this. And there's an opportunity there that maybe that grant can pay for some of those extra things that you saw on the edges of that rendering, therefore offsetting the cost a little bit of this project. So we're very aware of all of the different opportunities to creatively find a way to maximize the skate park, which is the goal.
Yeah, right on. Thanks,
all right, I'm going to let Chris come off mute now. Chris, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Nice. Yeah, I'm kind of on a not so great connection. Thanks again for everything going on and being part of it. We've all kind of been excited about this for a long time. As for the green part, trees, landscaping, and so on and so forth. I was wondering, is there somewhere in the grant application, is there some sort of like objective standard as to how that target can be hit? For example, like a minimum square footage amount or this much, anything like that.
The grant did say 20 new trees, and it provided some what they call greenhouse gas estimate offsets associated with tree planting as targets to do so. So I think at this point it's hard to imagine less than 20, but there might be some flexibility in that. That's the only like quantitative number that was provided in the grant application.
What is the greenhouse gas estimates like? How does that cash out? Is that is that what they expect that 20 trees would accomplish, or?
Essentially, yeah. It's based on the planting of trees of a different size, and there's calculators out there that essentially say that if you plant X number of trees, they'll offset greenhouse gas emissions by this much over. They'll sequester this much carbon over 20 years or 30 years. And you use that as kind of a justification to help you get grants, saying you're doing something to impact or offset the carbon that you're adding in concrete or whatever.
Right. Okay. Well,
yeah, I don't think there's any way of holding you to that number since it's just an estimate. It's just something that they use to kind of say that you know what you're talking about a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I was thinking, I think this could actually turn out as a net positive, and here's why. The original feasibility studies, the one in 1998, before we got anything in the beginning, way before Rob Dyrdek started building like skate plazas or whatever you want to call it, we had put in the feasibility study for a landscaped plaza with street elements and a bowl. I still have all that paperwork, like the study and all that other stuff. And so what I'm thinking is, you don't necessarily have to have a separate section of the park for trees. I mean, in a lot of like normal urban settings, we might be skating something like a little planter box or a ledge that has a tree in the middle, right? There's lots of spots like that. So I think that it would be pretty, with a little bit of creativity and some math, we can figure out how to like sneak these trees in while minimizing the square footage of the park that has to be, basically dirt instead of concrete, if that makes sense. And so I
completely,
I don't know. I think that would be key, because on the first meeting, I didn't really hear, I don't know if it was mentioned that, of the money that's on the table, only a certain amount was dedicated to skatable elements, and that of the square footage on the table, that only a little over half was allocated to actual skatable features. I think that's going to be concerning to the whole entire skate community. And so
I want to say that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was saying, I want to say that 40,000 that includes the street and part of the trail, and it doesn't include it doesn't count just the parcel that you're thinking of, right? The skate park. So like the 40,000 is everything you saw in there that had color applied to it, but a lot of that was never going to be part of the skate park anyway, right? The size of that parcel, I'd have to bring it up, of where the old school used to be, is not 40,000 square feet. It's more like 20,000 square feet. I think it's a quarter of an acre lot, or a half an acre lot. So the 40,000 took in all of the improvements. That doesn't mean that we could ever build a 40,000 square foot skate park.
Okay, got it. And is there any actual like limitation on that? Like, for example, the area where the water fountain currently is, I see that like in the diagram, the picture that you guys posted,
yeah,
that's like all landscaping. But is there any reason that it, like, if we're able to hit the landscape or the green, quote unquote green goals, is there any reason that we couldn't completely try to maximize the skatable features? Like, could that maybe become a little, the side area or something like that? Does that make sense?
It does, and I can speak to that one specifically. That little area where that fountain is now, that is the low spot in the flow line where a lot of the storm water is going to go. So it's going to be the opportunity that you have to treat water before it goes to the river, which is right across the freeway. So you're going to need, as I mentioned, the other piece of this is stormwater, how you build skate park with all that concrete, the state requires you to treat that water and essentially treat it as if you didn't build a skate park. So you need room, physical space to do that. And that's where that space is going to come in. There's creative ways to do that too, Chris. You're preaching to the choir about finding ways to integrate trees into the urban fabric and those green elements. That's what we do professionally in all of our stuff. The playground at Arroyo Verde has trees right in the middle of the playground kind of thing. It doesn't jeopardize the playground safety or the square footage. That's a great feedback for the designer when they get on board.
I just wanted to add, Caden is in the meeting and he sent me a message that said, grass gaps and planter box ledges can be worked into the skate park design for 2 birds, 1 stone scenario, like Chris is saying. So yeah, this idea of integration of features that work for both elements, right? You guys are getting skate elements, but we're also doing some of the greening things. And this is great design feedback.
I think that's really interesting criteria to look through for designers. I want to kind of pull this conversation out of skate park design and back up to a skate park designer, because I think the conversations about skate park design will happen in the future. As we mentioned, we really want to focus in on how to pick the best designer, but that's an interesting criteria to look for is skate park designers that have experience incorporating green elements into skate park design.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Okay, Donnette asked a question a few minutes ago. Are we good so far with the timeline? Is there any possibility that we may delay the process for not using the grant on time?
I think the timeline as it stands right now that you've seen is an extremely achievable one to construct the project a year ahead of the deadline. There's some conservative, even the timeline to develop the RFP in time is a little conservative. Everything we're showing you right now is pretty conservative, meaning that I do not think at this point we are in jeopardy of hitting that timeline. No one knows where COVID is going. No one knows where supply chain is going. All of that said, where we're at right now, I think we are well on track to meet the timeline. And we are in the same boat as everyone else who achieved this grant. There was, like I said, over $385 million awarded in November to cities throughout the state. They're all on the same timeline. And a lot of those are much bigger, more ambitious projects. So keep that in mind. This is a relatively small project that is very achievable. And I think the design build route will help with that as well. If it had to go out to bid and bring somebody else in there, that adds a whole nother layer of timeline and city review. So design build is going to help this come in on schedule and hopefully on budget as well.
Do we miss anybody else's comments or concerns? Again, feel free to raise your hand if you want to speak out your comment, question, concern, or feel free to use the chat. Just scrolling back to see if there's anything else that came up. Brandon asked that he saw Kaiser Permanente was listed as one of the community partners, and what are they contributing? Part of the grant, and a lot of grants do this, they ask for letters of support in the beginning of the project. I would assume that Kaiser Permanente might have been one of those letters of community support. I just did a quick search in the application and wasn't able to find the answer for you, Brandon. But that's information that we can track down and definitely follow back up with you on that.
I know that they would have had to have listed their donation in the grant application. So at this point, they haven't donated, but that doesn't mean that they're not off the table for potential future fundraising efforts.
Sunday says free ER visits. Hopefully nobody will need an ER visit after the city's skateboard classes, but these things happen. We know you're kidding. It's a good joke. Yeah, knock on wood. I'll knock on my desk. And everybody to stay safe out there. We'll give everybody a couple more minutes to speak up if there's any other questions or concerns, but just wanted to remind you again, our project website is www.westparkskatepark.com. On the website, You can drop Eric and I a message. You can take the survey if you weren't able to already today or before today. And you can also share those links with family and friends. We have the full presentation in English and in Spanish. The surveys in English and in Spanish, where you can direct friends and family that couldn't be here to interact with the process. We would love to see that feedback in the next couple of weeks before we get started on writing the RFP.
Yeah, and stay tuned. If you're on the mailing list, it's going to be one of the best ways to stay tuned on the process. We'll be sending out updates of some of the results of this community engagement, keeping people informed as we move forward.
In the chat, we're seeing some specific design recommendations for plant material and potential companies to work with and their qualifications, and we appreciate that, and it'll definitely be considered. But for the purpose of today's meeting, I think we'll go back over the next steps in the design process. I'll go ahead and share my screen again. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, Sunday, I can start that conversation to answer that question about next steps. This is our last community engagement meeting while working on the RFP for the city. So we're going to be taking all the results from these meetings and the survey, compiling them and using them to craft the criteria and language that asks the qualifications in the RFP. We're working on that process with the city in tandem. The city is working on the legal requirements that go in. Since this is the first design build project that ever is going to be constructed in the city of Ventura, they have to craft a whole new slate of contract requirements for this project. They're doing that right now. So those two things are going to come together into this RFP in early July. That RFP is going to go out and ask for responses from many different skate park design build consultants. Hopefully a lot of them will respond. When those responses come back, we're going to take a look at those. There's a group, not just the city, PCLD will be involved and West will be involved in kind of the analysis of RFPs, making a recommendation of who to interview. Those interviewees, 2, 3 firms will come in, I'm not sure how many yet, but will come in and interview. And from that, final selection of the contract will be made. We're hoping that'll be done by early fall, with the design process happening in the early fall associated with community engagement, late fall into next year, early 2023, design happening throughout 2023, and hopefully construction starting towards the end of 2023 into 2024 with an opening in the summer. And you can see here that kind of gap that we have between summer of 2024 and March of 2025, that's the wiggle room that, so to speak, in the process before this has to be completed.
I found a small typo in our timeline, and that's why my cursor is over it, but we'll make this
that is
improve. Yeah, we'll make this improvement in the presentation that gets posted on the website. But yep. Yeah, construction starting in November 2023 through July of 2024. So yeah, we've got about a year of wiggle room. So that's that wiggle room that we were talking about for potential fundraising. Or, if we needed a couple more months for the 3 meeting model. But yeah, we're about a year ahead of schedule at this point. And Mike's got his hand up. Mike, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hello. I just want to, thank everyone for taking the time, and definitely all you guys at the PCLD and everyone from Ventura, and I don't know, just grateful for all of you. Again, I've said it a million times, but I just hope the community can get behind us in just understanding how much we stress that our park stands out as an individual park and doesn't just blend in with all the other parks amongst even, Ventura County, especially Southern California, even all of California. We want to be that park built by the right people that make us shine, and well, not us, the kids. I don't care about me anymore. Yeah, I just want to we're putting all this energy into it. Let's make it the best possible park we can for the kids now and the next generations to come. And that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you for all you're doing to help it come true too.
Very honored to be a part of it.
I'm hearing today that maybe necessarily didn't come up in Thursday's meeting, but it's this idea of ingenuity and like the uniqueness of the Westpark skate park, which is super helpful information to include in the RFP. And also, if the donation of materials can happen, there would be probably some timeline implications for that, and we would probably want to select a skate park design builder that has experience in helping with the sourcing of donated materials. So these are all great points that were brought up today that we can take into consideration. So I appreciate it. I just muted myself. I want to take this opportunity to again thank West, our Westpark Skate Park steering team. Also Jackie Pierce from the West Side Community Development Corporation. She couldn't be here today, but I know Dawnette serves on her board. So thank you, Dawnette, for double dipping on the volunteer efforts and helping with WCDC and West. Everybody that's here today that has been engaged in this effort for the last 20 some years. Thank you so much for all of your efforts. We're really coming in on the tail end of it, so to speak, and are really happy to be a part of this. And big thanks to the City of Ventura for making this a true community-led effort. Dawnette's got his hand up. Dawnette, you have something?
Yeah, no, I thank you so much. No, I'm really excited to be part of this. I think this is the very first time that we've gotten to this point. So I think it's awesome that we as a community are working together to make this happen, because back then it was kind of like, we're kind of waiting for the city to do something. And this is the very first time we're actually having these conversations, really constructive conversations. And, you know, talking to the skateboarders and talking to you all, it really feels like it's very community based. I'm really excited. Doesn't feel like it's a very disconnected sort of project from the community and the city. So thank you all for making it really very smooth in that regard.
Thanks, Dawnette. We appreciate it. Thanks for being here again today. Does anybody have anything else? We're getting towards the end of our time for today. Again, just a reminder, info@westparkskatepark.com if you've got any comments or questions, and please head over to the website if you haven't already. Angel?
Yeah, also, I would like to say to the community, like anyone who's on here, even if the people just hear about it, just feel free to ask us any questions and we can relay that to whoever we need to. And just, we're here for you guys. We're all a steering team. It's all of us doing this. And just don't be shy. Just reach out and say what you got to say, and we could talk about it. Let's just make this for everyone, you know. So we're here. So if you guys have anything to say, just reach out to us. We're all here for the community, you know. So yeah, that's about it. Just
awesome. Thanks, Angel.
There were a couple questions that showed up in the chat. Timelines impacts in a good way or potentially bad way. I think we don't know the impacts of the timeline yet right now, Chris. You know, right now the timeline that we showed you is conservative. So we hope that can be met by the consultants that are on board. We don't know that, of course, until a lot of other factors come in. But right now we're confident in what we're showing you. And what will the interview process be based on? That's a great question, Caden. The interview process will be based on a lot of those metrics we showed you today. We're going to be asking, and the metrics that come out of this engagement, we're going to be asking those skate park designers when they come into interview how they intend to meet, you know, if it's community-based planning and how they go about providing flow. Are they skaters themselves? We're going to be asking them all those questions in person to make sure that they really meet the criteria that you are helping us set for a skate park designer. We don't have a list of questions yet. That's what this whole effort is helping us do.
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand, but I just want to say also that bowls means a lot to a lot of us in town. So let's really push to keep that. It's history. It's basically the heart of the park. If we could all push to keep that, even to talk to the designers or whoever's going to make it, let's just make that a point, you know, to hold on to that heart. Because if you let go of that heart, everything else isn't really going to matter. It's just going to be just scattered veins everywhere, you know. So that's just one thing that really means a lot to us in the West Side, and I would myself appreciate that. You know, I've been there since I was a kid, and I've seen it, and it would just be devastating to see that go. So let's all as a team here that in this meeting, let's all push for that. You know, we're here to make something rad and to keep it all alive. You know, let's all push for that, please.
Thanks for that comment,
Thank
Angel.
you. Yep. Yeah, and we can kind of reiterate that at least right now, the way the grant application is structured, the goal is to remain. And that is the goal that was heard loud and clear in the community engagement. There were other people who thought it should go too. I think once a skate park designer comes in and analyzes things, we'll have a better picture of how realistic that really is. I'd like to think it's totally realistic and it can stay, because it both behooves us in the budget, which everyone has talked about here today, and being able to spend money elsewhere, but also really keeping that sense of place and heart of the location. So thank you for making that comment clear. I think it's the starting point everyone's going to be using.
Thank you.
There's a lot of chat that says other people are agreeing with you. So
About the bowl.
About the bowl, yeah. Well, I think we could probably wrap it up, Brianne.
Yeah, we just want to thank
Save
everybody for
10 minutes on their Saturday.
Yeah, on their Saturday. Yeah. Thanks everybody for being here. We really appreciate your time. Again, this is a recorded meeting, so if you want to share it, it'll be available on the city's YouTube and also on our project website, westparkskatepark.com. We'd love to hear from you, and make sure to tell friends and family about the survey if they haven't filled it out already. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.